719 at KPEL. Welcome into Wingin It Wednesday, brought to you by our friends over at Service Cadillac. Look, it's Wash It Up Wednesday today. Why don't you just buy a car and then wash it on your way out? I mean, they're going to do a great job to wash it anyway.
It's beautiful.
But just go ahead and go through for the first time. Over there, 1212 Ambassador Caffrey. Carol Ross yesterday, during the Ross Report, joins us, and so does Warren. Yesterday, someone called, and before they asked their question about the budget, they said, "Are you the soothing voice from the Service Cadillac commercials?"
Yes, she is.
Yeah.
Okay, so exposed, busted.
Yeah, you're busted, Carol. You're busted. Okay, so we're in the midst of this budget battle. I'm going to go ahead and call it a battle. Back and forth. We know it has to be wrapped up by midnight tonight. And looking at the other bigger national issue, Obamacare and the costs associated with that. So the first topic we're going to talk about is healthcare in the state. Healthcare in hospitals. How do you think they look going forward in the state, as that is such a big chunk of the budget and the cost that we have here going forward with whatever happens? Carol, let's start with you.
Well, the word of the day, boys and girls, is unsustainable. Repeat after me. Unsustainable. None of it is sustainable. Right now, health care takes up about at least a third of the budget, according to the reports I've seen. It's going up. It's going up and up and up with the Medicaid expansion. Nobody could talk to the governor about how this Medicaid expansion was going to collapse. The only hope we have in Louisiana, once again, is the feds. If they do away with Obamacare and do some substantive reforms and some changes that may help us dig out of this hole. But when the state expanded Medicaid, it's unbelievable. Meanwhile, I have several friends. I still have several friends. One of them happens to still be a Democrat, and she gets these wonderful missives from the governor. And the latest one is about saving higher ed. Now, this is just an example. Here we are in this budget crunch. He's sending out an email to Democrats, help the governor save higher ed, higher ed, higher ed, higher ed. And, of course, at the bottom, a little donate button. So, yeah, Mr. Governor, West Point Honor Code, yes, exactly. Do you know, are you raising, if some Republican had done that, raising money off the backs of the poor people. This system is not sustainable as it's structured right now. Some changes are going to have to be made. Have the public-private partnerships work? Not according to the hospitals themselves, because haven't they been stiffed on payments? Yes, they have. How long can they continue to provide services and not get full compensation for those services? Which, by the way, if you look at the way they do healthcare billing, you talk about they got
hieroglyphics.
Byzantium had nothing on this billing system. Yes, hieroglyphics.
Warren,
so is it sustainable? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, Warren, what you think?
I think it's just a whole lot more of the same old stuff. Is that you don't talk about the billing and all of that. Is that everything is so complicated and so convoluted in government itself, in contracting, procurements, whatever. Look at healthcare delivery. That is where we really have had a problem in this country. It's not the quality of healthcare out there, but it's the healthcare delivery. And that, have you ever gone to a hospital and tried to get your bill?
Don't even ask.
And then if you even get it, can you read the thing? Can and that when you look at all of this stuff and you want to talk about fraud, you go back a few years, the state of Louisiana was committing absolute fraud and theft and everything else with the federal government, where we were turning around there and making up numbers and claiming that, well, they're going to match what we put into it, so then what we put into it is what the feds gave us. So then we claim that's what we put into it. So then the feds gave us that much more money. And then all at once they said, wait a minute, you guys owe us like whatever it was, $1 gazillion.
$161 million, something like that.
And so,
million.
And that happened not only with the state, but it also happened with some of the healthcare providers. So Wonder Boy Jindal goes to Washington under the Bush administration, and he winds up settling a $60-something million bill, I think, for like $1 million or whatever it was. I mean, it's just this thing is so out of control, it's out of hand. We need some adults in the room who will sit down, take a look at the whole thing, and say, look, what makes sense? What can we do? And that I know that you've got to be able to offer health care services in a reasonable manner. But, I still go back and say the way the thing is done right now, that we got so much stuff in health care that's just totally out of kilter.
But how many, we're going to get a final word from Carol in a second, but how many people also, Warren, benefit because they know that the convoluted mess that it's all in, they can ultimately profit in the middle because no one can even tell what they're doing.
Oh, it's absolutely correct. Absolutely.
Carol?
Well, it's a little game they play, and I heard this from the inside from someone who used to be with one of the major insurance companies, and the way they do it, and the hospitals they do this to maintain their nonprofit status. So the bill might read $30,000, but they'll negotiate with an insurance company to pay $1,500, and the rest of it they write off, and that maintains their nonprofit status. Hello.
But then when you're a cash paying customer, you better believe you're going to get a $30,000 bill.
Well, in a lot of cases, and the people who are going to the emergency room with no insurance, because COBRA, you have to serve them, you have to treat them in the emergency room, and so they figured out that little scam too. Go to the emergency room, I get treated for free, and somebody else is going to pick up the tab. But the way that they've changed it under Obamacare is worse, because now you're covering 24/7 somebody. So.
All right, well, we will play the odds next on Wingin' It Wednesday, and we're gonna leave your hopes and dreams behind in our next segment.
Oh, they're long gone. About state government? Are you kidding?
And I just want a prediction. Where do you think we're gonna land tonight? Are we gonna have an agreement? Are we not? And what's it gonna look like? That's all coming up. Wingin' It Wednesday, brought to you by Service Cadillac. Stay with us.
And double-checking what's happening in traffic this morning. Savoy Road in Youngsville, there's a report of a traffic crash there. That's Savoy Road closest to Railroad Road. Again, Savoy closest to Railroad Road. And it's kind of in that area in the middle between Schmed-Metairie Parkway. So watch out in that area. I-10 eastbound mile marker 101. That's I-10 eastbound mile marker 101. That happening about 20 minutes or so ago. So I-10 eastbound mile marker 101. Make sure you buckle up. Keep it safe out there.
$7:30 at KPEL. Missing one of our 4-leaf clover leaves. Oh, there he is.
Hello.
Howdy.
Welcome back to Wingin' It Wednesday, brought to you by Service Cadillac.
Who's here?
You know, I'm sure all these lawmakers are going to be happy to say, "Honey, I'm home."
Yeah.
from Baton Rouge for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that it's going to be that cut and dry, but I've been surprised. This entire situation, it's as if it's like every time we reach the fiscal cliff federally, and we hear about fiscal cliff for whatever 3 weeks, we hear the lead up to it, and then guess what? Every time, the 11th hour, they're going to come through, and then they're all going to go back to their home districts and say, "You know what? We did it for you. We came together. We made an agreement. We did it for you." So I sort of think it's all fake. I kind of think everything in Baton Rouge is fake, too. I think there's already a deal. Can I just go ahead and go out there? I think there's already a deal. I think we know what we're going to do, but we're going to wait until 11:36.
You're just so cynical, Rob.
11:36. I'll be setting my alarm because I'll be 3 hours into my night of sleep. I'll wake up, and there will be a deal. As I said in the last break, dashing our hopes and dreams about what we'd like to happen. What do you think's going to happen, Warren?
I think that it's going to come down to you can trade the deal we have for what's behind door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3.
Wayne Brady is actually in Baton Rouge today.
Who is Wayne
to make
Brady?
a deal. Let's make a deal.
I go back to Monty Hall.
Okay, yeah. Monty Hall. If he's in Baton Rouge, we got problems.
How about the price is right?
I got to point out one thing Rob just a while ago said. Bernie told me a long time ago. She said, "What are the 3 worst words you can hear while making love?" Oh God. Said, "Honey, I'm home."
Oh my gosh.
Stop it.
I didn't have any part of that.
Bernie, that kind of joke is not approved.
I didn't have any part of that.
But it's not approved. But that's kind of what you're going to hear tonight coming out of Baton Rouge.
Unapproved. Yes.
Yeah. That regardless of what they do, some of it is not going to be good for somebody.
Okay, Carol. And, sorry.
We're gonna. Anyway. It's just more of the same old stuff, if you ask me. But in the end, the world economy is starting to turn around, and it's going to pick up, and things are going to be good 2 or 3 years down the road, and all the Democrats are going to be out there hollering, "We saved Louisiana." The tax increases and blah, blah, blah. We saved, just like a bunch of them did when Clinton did his tax increases. Had absolutely nothing to do with the money flowing into the federal government. What had to do with it was Robert Rubin, the Federal Reserve, and just pouring money into the markets and into the economy, and just set it on fire. And so they went out there and said, "You see, the tax increases worked. The tax increases saved America."
We will see. Carol, what's your thoughts?
And what they forgot to tell him was part of that came out of the Social Security. of their check, out of their Social Security checks.
Lockbox.
Yeah, there you go. We got one word for you, lockbox. In terms of this budget, well, la-di-da. I had a real education yesterday afternoon on the Ross Report. First of all, one of our brilliant listeners, Russell, called in and he said, no, take another look at that budget. It's going to increase 7%, even with the money out of the rainy. Well, if they take the money out of the rainy day fund, it's going to be an 8% increase. If they cut back the amount they take out of the rainy day fund, it's going to be a 7% increase over the current budget for next year.
So
and Stuart Bishop.
Still not even cutting?
No, we're not cutting. Come on. You know the favorite game, and it's been going on since my husband was a legislator. We saw it all the time. The health care, higher ed, they'd all go over there screaming, you're cutting our budget. Well, what would happen is they'd ask for a 20% increase over the current year. They'd get a 10% increase, and that they considered a cut, not an increase. Well, guess what? This is what Representative Bishop told us. He was on his way to Baton Rouge, and I said, he said it's going to be a late night, and it's probably going to be another late night today. Anyway, the health department, okay, they want a 20% increase, over 20% increase. Higher ed is asking for a 19.5% increase. Corrections is asking for about a 15% increase over the current year. So they're all asking for increases. Meanwhile, the governor and John Alario are over there saying, we have to have this money or the state is just going to die. We're going to have these massive cuts. And the governor is sending out fundraising notices based on, please sign the petition to save higher ed. It is how many times does the little boy have to cry wolf before the voters? And I think the voters are there. I don't think anybody's buying what they're selling anymore. Whether it remains to be seen whether the legislators get jammed on this again, because their usual thing is they can't come to terms. They go to conference committee. The governor stacks it with whoever he wants, and on the Senate side, and then they jam it to the House at the last minute. Take it or leave it. Well, this time they should leave it. Lance Harris is absolutely correct. Taylor Barra's trying to work a compromise, but it doesn't help. With these guys, they want it all. They want the money, and they don't care how they get it. They don't care how they lie to get it. And so I think people have just had enough of it, really.
Do you think that voters, because this is my concern, we live in such a world where it's all about the 24-hour news cycle. If you've been able to get your name out of it for 24 hours, people have moved on to something else. Do you think the legislators who are there are really worried, if, say, they're not up for re-election soon, they may be just starting, worry that no matter what decision they make right now, voters aren't going to remember?
Well, I think we're past that. I think that and what's the problem is the average person, man, they're just trying to make a living, raise their families, put food on the table, put a roof over their heads, that kind of stuff. They don't have time to really get involved in the process. So it's usually the activists on either side that the legislators hear from. And so the ones who, can mobilize the most forces, you see that happening on the left right now. If you read their website, indivisibleguide.org, they're so jealous of the Tea Party. They had the Tea Party all wrong, but they're jealous of the methods that the Tea Party used, which was just an organic movement of a bunch of people in different areas, and so they're trying to replicate that and harass.
We always take your calls, 232-1542 on Wingin It Wednesday, 232-1542. Warren, do you think at the end of the day, the average person, because someone brought this up to us on Monday and said, I would almost rather them use the rainy day fund than pass along another new tax. Do you see the same correlation between those two things?
Up to a point, that the average person, I think that and everybody says, well, they don't pay any attention to it, and we just go along. We're too busy working it. But at some point, it's going to come to a head. At some point, people sit there and they say, I look around and my neighbors lost their job, my boys lost his, my daughter lost her, can't find a job, just graduated with a master's degree from one of the most learned institutions in this state, and blah, blah, blah. Goes like what old George Will said, kids coming out of these worthless colleges today after 5 and 6 years, and that they have a mortgage but no house. And that, we just keep kicking that can, we keep just pouring money into an empty hole and paying and giving the bill to the average person, and sooner or later the average person says, by God, I'm not paying the bill anymore. And then the other side jumps up and says, You're rude. You're crazy. You're racist. You're a homophobe. You're a bigot.
You're mean.
You're misogynist.
Yeah.
Yes, you're evil.
You're mean.
And
because you don't want to give us more money to waste.
It all comes down to reality at some point, which is kind of what I said one time. We were talking about Donald Trump during the campaign. Said a reality show person, and I said, this is the biggest reality show going. Is the election of the president, and it's somewhere down the road. It has real consequences.
All right.
And thank God he's doing what he said.
11:36. Like I said, that's. I'm putting my money on 11:36 tonight.
Here was the real knee slapper, Rob.
Yeah.
The quote by John Ilario that people need to realize we're in a democracy and they need to compromise. Really? When did you ever compromise about anything?
And are you not part of the problem? I mean, like,
hello?
Come on. Gosh, I'm sorry. I'm sitting behind the mic Moon sits behind. I just felt him kind of go through my veins a little bit.
The spirit of Moon came shooting out of that mic.
All right, it's 7:38. Coming back, we're going to talk about what's going on in Washington. Trump's new pick for National Security Advisor seems to be getting praise from everyone. We will talk about that coming up. Details on McMaster and that pick coming up at 7:39 at KPEL. All right, 7:46. I am not ashamed to say we have said so many times the KPEL listeners, they're on top of it.
They're on it. They're on fire. They sizzle.
And,
they're good stuff.
We have someone on the phone who says he has the answers.
As usual. It's beautiful.
To the budget problems. Go ahead, sir, with your comments.
Hello, Norman.
Norm.
Okay, well, hi.
Norm.
Confederate gray skies today.
Yes, indeed. Nothing but.
No, here's the deal. I think that the Revenue Estimating Conference and any assorted budget committees should all be imprisoned for felony malfeasance. And then some heroic person could propose a bill that here's the budget, here's the money. If there's less money than budget, everybody share and share alike. A percentage of what they get from the government or what they get, as their allocation, they get cut. And anything that they don't spend, that could, in the next year, could go into the rainy day fund and rebuild that. That's it. Very simple. I asked my senator about that one day. Oh, we can't do that, but maybe we should.
Norman, let me ask you a question. Over the years we've been hearing former state treasurer, now United States Senator Kennedy, about these consulting contracts and all that, but they never seem to cut back on those, and they wouldn't have to touch higher ed and health care, right?
Just a percentage.
Just a small, it wouldn't have to be a lot, just a small percentage.
I mean, what is the shortfall now, and what is the budget? It's a very simple mathematical formula. That's what we're short. That's what everybody kicks in.
All right, thank you.
The one problem with what he said is about what you don't spend. It goes back to that old adage that they used to say: you have to spend it or you don't get it next year. So when it comes down to the end of the year, they just go into a spending
exactly
frenzy.
Whether they need the stuff or not. Let me tell you, there are probably offices all over the state that are stacked high with furniture and computers and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's like, how do you stop that? There's got to be a way to figure out. I mean, God, we're so much smarter.
There is a way to figure it out, and that. But the problem is, you have to have the willpower to do it, and you have to have the want to do it.
So let's move on to the happenings in Washington the day after Donald Trump made his pick for General McMaster to be the National Security Advisor. I came in, I said, Bernie. Last night, I just heard this glowing review of everything about him, about the things he accomplished, about how he has a PhD, and a lot of times that's looked down upon when you're actually in the Army, but it does make you very well qualified for this job. And then I said, the kicker is it was on CNN tonight at 10 o'clock. I mean, it seems like all the critics who have been around like this pick, the headline this morning on the New York Times is, now let General McMaster do his job. What do you think about the pick? And obviously the reaction to him. Warren, let's start with you.
That there are a world of generals who have PhDs, and that was one of the things back over the years that was almost a requirement at one time, that you had a PhD to be even considered for selection for the general grade office. And kind of the same old thing. When a certain group of people like it, better look out. And that I don't know anything about the old general. I've never met him, or I should say the young general. And I read his bio and such stuff as that, and we're talking about how he he served honorably in the Gulf War, and in the like where he got his start was in the Gulf War. And I'm thinking to myself, what? Got your start in 1991. Oh, Lord, I'm older than I think I am.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But from what I've seen, what I read, probably a pretty good pick. And that, I don't know. But anyway, some of the glowing accolade that he was given us, how he turned around the Iraq War, I didn't know that had ever been turned around.
I was actually kind of surprised by that as well.
You know, and that, but it's the same old thing. They will say anything. They will say anything. You know, it's like that goofy senator from Arizona who claims that the surge that he put together saved saved Iraq. You know, and I mean, you know, give us a break. We're not stupid. You know, I'll tell you when you can say you turned around the Iraq War is when we're sitting at a table at the surrender table, and the opposition signs the surrender documents and all, just like we did on the deck of the USS Missouri in 1945. Mm-hmm. And what happened in, I guess it was Berlin or wherever it was. No, I guess it was in London when Germany surrendered.
232-1542 for your comments. Carol, what are your thoughts?
Well, they didn't say they won. They said the surge helped to turn it around, which it did, and he was involved. McMaster was involved with Petraeus in that surge. He actually won a Silver Star after the first Gulf War. And he actually had, he's considered the intellectual general. And I think the reason that the left likes him is because he did criticize the war in Iraq in some ways, the execution of the war in Iraq up to a point. And so libs like him for that. And conservatives like him because he's being picked by Trump. So we'll see how it plays out. But he's legendary. From what I've read, he has a long list of writings that for people to can go and look at. But anybody in my book who quotes Saul Bellow in his writings is pretty darn good. The quote that he used that from Saul Bellow is really I think it's instructive in terms of his thinking. And the quote is, "A great deal of intelligence can be invested in ignorance when the need for illusion is deep."
Wow.
Yeah. So really cool. I like that. And he's really he's kind of bucked the prevailing wisdom. He's gone against his superiors. It's caused him a problem in sometimes, but he's apparently a pretty deep thinker and has a lot of writings to prove that. So it remains to be seen. They say they've given him free rein as to who he's going to have on the council. So Warren. Yeah, for staff.
That quote just about sums up the national intelligence community, and that is an honest statement.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
Let's take a couple of phone calls.
There's a reason Trump is skeptical of the CIA.
232-1542.
And the NSA.
And the DIA.
All right, go ahead with your phone call, sir.
15
go ahead with your comment.
Me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, I don't know if that's the general or not, but the green zone was partitioned off with walls, and then they started attacking each other. He said, okay, well, we're going to fix this. Took down one of the walls. They stopped attacking each other. They weren't separate anymore. I think that's the same general. But actually, my comment was about the budget. There is a way to keep them from blowing all the money at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. You give bonuses to the managers for keeping the budget low, a percentage of what they save.
Ooh.
Okay, thank you. Interesting. All right.
That still would only be a percentage of the money. If you consider it as part of your budget, what those bonuses would be.
I say you don't give a bonus to anybody in government. What you do is you set the damn budget where it should be, and then you look after it. It's just that simple.
Didn't they try to do zero-based budgeting a while back, or baseline, some kind of baseline?
Yeah, zero-based budgeting.
It rings
but
in
the
my
problem,
head.
The
Jerry
problem
Luc
with
LeBlanc
the federal
tried to do
budget
that.
goes back to 1960s when they passed that thing. It said the budget will automatically increase by 10% every year, and then I think it was revamped in the 80s. And so ever since then, when you do that, that means that the budget is going to double every 7.2 years. And so and Congress has a right to cut that back. So what they've done, they've increased it about 8.5% or 9% every year. And so the budget's going to double every 8 years. It doesn't make a difference who's in there, as long as Congress lets it do that. And so that's where all this stuff comes up about cutting the budget. They never say cutting spending because they don't. And look, both sides sit there and criticize the other side. Paul Ryan's budget was going to increase defense spending from $1 trillion a year to $1.85 trillion in 8 years or in 9 years, whatever it was. And so the Republicans said, yeah, but they're cutting $150 billion out of the defense budget. No, they weren't. They were increasing it by $850 billion.
Same technique that they use on the state. They're increasing it.
Yeah,
they ask for $200 million, they get $100 million, and oops, it's a cut.
Wow. All right, guys. Well, let's just close our eyes and hope for the best. We have about a minute left. Let's take a couple quick phone calls, Bernie, to wrap up Wingin' It Wednesday. Good morning. You're on the air. What are your comments?
Yeah, my friend taught at the school in Fort Polk, and she was given an allocation of funds for supplies for her classroom and whatnot, and she didn't need all of it. And she had pressure from the administration to spend all the money, even if she didn't need it, because the next year they wouldn't get that money.
Yep.
And so there's just waste across the board.
Well, yeah. Thank you for your comment. Yeah, I think
very.
I think a lot of the holdover comes from private to public because we've known that has happened in corporations forever. Look at like moves that are made right before a big earnings announcement or something like that. About 20 seconds left, Bernie. Let's
all right.
do one more call.
Oh, sorry.
Not there. Well, 20 seconds. Well spent.
That was meant to be.
All right, guys. It's been another great Wingin' It Wednesday. Thanks again, Warren Caudle and Carol Ross.
Well, we'll keep an eye on what happens.
Always keep an eye on what happens. And join Carol this afternoon, the Ross Report.
Yep.
Yeah.
2 p.m. right here on a Katie.
Go Cajuns, go Cajuns.
Yes, go.